Young nurse was demoted for feeding 2 patients every day, unaware one of them was a billionaire. What would you do if a small act of kindness nearly cost you your job, only to be noticed by someone who could change everything? Clara Moreno had only been a nurse for 3 weeks when things started to feel off. She wasn't new to stress. Nursing school had prepared her for long hours and difficult patients, but she hadn't expected how impersonal it all felt inside St. Jude Regional Medical Center. She worked the 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. shift on the 4th floor, mostly long-term care patients, most of them elderly. Some were recovering from surgery, some were dealing with chronic conditions, and a few were just there, waiting. Some didn't even have discharge plans. At 26, Clara was one of the younger nurses on the floor. She'd moved from a small town in New Jersey for this job, excited to finally start her career. But it didn't take long before she started noticing things that didn't sit right. Patients were being ignored. Not in an obvious, malicious way, but in small, quiet ways that built up. Bed alarms would go off and take several minutes to be answered. Meals were dropped off on trays and picked up later, barely touched. Aides were overworked. Nurses were stretched thin. And some patients clearly needed more help than they were getting. One evening, around 7 p.m., Clara walked past room 311. She noticed a thin older man sitting upright, staring at the wall. His dinner tray was in front of him, mashed potatoes, a dinner roll, some kind of overcooked chicken. Nothing had been touched. She stepped inside gently. "Hey there," she said softly. "You not hungry tonight?" The man turned slowly. His hands shook slightly. "I can't hold the spoon." Clara nodded. "Would you like some help?" He nodded once. She pulled up a chair and fed him. Slowly, patiently. It took maybe 15 minutes. He ate almost everything. That was Mr. Henry. No family listed on his chart. Medicare patient. Quiet. Cooperative. But definitely being overlooked. The next day, Clara brought in some of her own food, soft scrambled eggs and oatmeal in a Tupperware container. She waited until things slowed down during her shift, then fed Mr. Henry again. It became part of her routine. Nothing fancy. She wasn't trying to be a hero, she just couldn't stand seeing someone left like that. About a week later, she met Mr. Dawson in room 307. He was different. He had a strong build, even in a wheelchair. A double amputee, maybe late 60s. Always seemed irritated. Said very little. His meal trays also went untouched. One night, Clara asked if he needed help. "I don't want anyone's help," he said sharply. She started to back away. Then he added, "Unless you got something that actually tastes like food." She smiled. "I can work on that." The next evening, she brought him a peanut butter sandwich and a banana. He didn't say thank you, but he ate all of it. From then on, he let her come in. She started bringing extra small meals for the two of them. Nothing big. Soup. Sandwiches. Soft fruits. She made sure it was things they could chew easily. She was careful about allergies and watched their charts when she could. Clara's manager, Nurse Laramie, had a reputation. She was strict, detail-oriented, liked policies, liked rules, and didn't like when staff went off script. One evening, Clara noticed her watching from the hallway as she left Mr. Dawson's room. The look wasn't curiosity, it was suspicion. Nothing happened that night, but Clara had a bad feeling. Sure enough, the next afternoon, she got called into the office. Laramie sat across from her, arms folded. "I'm hearing that you've been feeding patients meals you brought from home. Is that correct?" Clara hesitated. Just 2 of them. They weren't eating. They don't have family. I'm not using hospital food or anything. It's from me." Laramie didn't blink. "That's not appropriate. We have strict guidelines for nutrition and liability. You're not authorized to feed patients outside their care plan." Clara tried to explain. I'm careful. I check their charts. I make sure it's safe. But no one is helping them eat. They just sit there hungry. Laramie shut her notebook. You can't fix the system by breaking rules. Consider this a verbal warning. Don't let it happen again. Clara walked out of the office frustrated. Not angry, just disappointed. She knew Laramie was following policy. But she also knew those rules were failing people like Henry and Dawson. The next day, she didn't bring food. She felt guilty. Mr. Henry looked confused when she didn't stop by. Mr. Dawson said nothing, but she saw him glance at the clock. By the following evening, she couldn't take it anymore. She brought them food again, quietly, quickly. She checked the halls, made sure no one saw her, and fed them both like she always had. Now it felt like sneaking around. She didn't talk about it with the other nurses. Most of them were nice, but they kept their heads down. No one wanted extra work, and no one wanted trouble with Laramie. But Clara couldn't let it go. One night, while helping Mr. Dawson with soup, he asked her, "Why are you doing this? You getting paid extra or something?" She shook her head. "No, I don't think anyone should be left like this." He looked at her longer than usual, then nodded slowly. "You're different." Clara wasn't sure what he meant, but she took it as a good sign. From then on, things became routine. She fed both men every evening. Sometimes she brought cookies. Sometimes she just sat with them for a while. One evening, as she stepped out of Mr. Dawson's room, she almost ran into Laramie again. This time, Laramie didn't say anything. She just made a note on her clipboard. The next morning, Clara was taken off her regular patient rotation and assigned to linen duty, basically collecting and sorting hospital laundry. It wasn't officially labeled a punishment, but everyone knew what it was. Guess Florence Nightingale got herself in trouble, one nurse joked behind her back. Clara didn't say anything. She just did her work and kept her head down. She was hurt but not surprised. She'd broken the rules. But what upset her more was that no one else seemed to care why. After a few days doing linen duty, Clara was quietly placed back on her regular patient rounds. No one said much about it, but she could feel the shift. It wasn't punishment on paper, but the message was clear: follow the rules or else. Still, she kept checking on Mr. Henry and Mr. Dawson. She stopped bringing them food for the time being, at least not every day. Instead, she tried to show up when they needed help and make time to talk to them during her rounds. Mr. Henry noticed right away. "No lunch today?" he asked, clearly disappointed. "I'm being watched," Clara replied, keeping her voice low. "Just for a little while." He nodded but looked down at his hands. It was nice while it lasted. Mr. Dawson didn't say anything when she skipped his meal. He just gave her a look that made her feel like she'd let him down. She didn't try to explain. Clara wasn't trying to be rebellious. She was just trying to do what she thought was right. But now it was starting to feel like no matter what she did, someone was waiting to report her. A few days later, Laramie gathered the staff near the nurses' station before shift change. It wasn't out of the ordinary. She liked to give reminders and updates before everyone got busy. But this time, her tone was more serious. "I want to remind everyone that hospital policy must be followed at all times," Laramie said. "That includes no outside food being given to patients, no extra time spent in rooms unless necessary, and no services outside your job description. Everything must be documented, and nothing outside of care plans is allowed." No one said a word. A few nurses looked around, and Clara could feel them glancing at her. "We've had a recent concern," Laramie continued. "It's been addressed. This is your warning. If anyone continues to cross that line, there will be consequences." Clara didn't respond. She kept her arms folded and looked at the floor. She felt like the entire thing was directed at her, and she knew others thought so too. After the meeting, Malik walked beside her on their way to the supply room. He kept his voice low. "They're definitely watching you now." "I figured," Clara said. "They think you're trying to show everyone else up," he added. "You're making them uncomfortable." Clara turned to him. "I'm not trying to make anyone look bad. I just didn't like seeing people go hungry." "I know," Malik replied. "But this place doesn't care about what's fair. They care about what's safe for them." That night, Clara didn't bring food. She checked in on Mr. Henry and Mr. Dawson like always, but her visits were short. She didn't want to give anyone another reason to complain. Still, Mr. Dawson could tell something was off. "You giving up already?" he asked. "No," Clara said. "Just laying low." He looked her up and down. "That's how they get people like you to quit. They wear you down one step at a time." Clara sighed. "I'm not quitting." He nodded once but said nothing more. On Friday evening, something unexpected happened. Clara was called into the administrative office before her shift ended. She assumed it was about the earlier warning. When she walked in, one of the assistant directors, Ms. Langley, was sitting at the desk. She asked Clara to sit down. "We got a letter from a patient," Langley said. "This doesn't happen often." Clara raised an eyebrow. "A complaint?" "No. A handwritten letter. A positive one." Langley slid it across the table. Clara opened it and immediately recognized the messy handwriting. It was from Mr. Dawson. "Nurse Clara is the only person here who helped me when no one else would. She brought me food. She listened. If the hospital has a problem with that, then it's the hospital that needs to change." Clara looked up, surprised. Langley kept a neutral tone. "I can't officially say we support what you did. But not everyone is upset about it." "I just wanted to help," Clara said quietly. Langley nodded. "Then just be careful. You're clearly doing something meaningful. Just make sure it doesn't cost you your job." That night, Clara stopped by Mr. Dawson's room. "You wrote a letter?" she asked. He didn't look up from the TV. "I did." "You didn't have to do that." "I know," he replied. "But you're the only one around here acting like people matter." Clara didn't know how to respond. Eventually, she said, "Thank you." "You're welcome. Now don't mess it up." From that day on, Clara didn't go back to feeding them daily. But she still brought the occasional snack, small, quiet gestures. A banana here. A soft granola bar there. She kept it simple and discreet. No more full meals. No more sitting for half an hour feeding spoonfuls of soup. It wasn't the same, but at least she hadn't completely stopped. Things started to shift again about 2 weeks after Clara returned to her regular duties. Mr. Dawson was still quiet. He didn't complain, didn't ask for much, and rarely made conversation. But one thing stayed consistent. He kept watching Clara closely. Not in a creepy way, just in that quiet, observant way some older patients do when they've seen a lot of life. One day during her break, Malik came up to her near the break room. "You know that guy Dawson?" he asked. "Yeah," Clara said. "What about him?" "His chart says his real name is Malcolm D. Rowan. I was doing his vitals this morning and noticed the name didn't match the armband." Clara frowned. "You sure?" "Yeah. I even checked the intake form. I think someone messed up when he got transferred here. He's been called Dawson this whole time, but that's not his name." Clara paused. "Rowan. That name sounds familiar." "I thought so too," Malik said. "I'm almost sure I've heard it somewhere before. Could be nothing. But it stood out." She nodded. "Thanks for telling me." Malik shrugged. "Figured you'd want to know." That night, Clara went into Mr. Dawson's room during her last round. He was awake, sitting upright and flipping through channels on the small TV. She changed his water cup and asked if he needed anything. He shook his head. Then, as she was about to leave, she paused. "Malcolm Rowan, she said. Is that your real name? He looked at her for a second before answering. Yeah. Why does your chart say Dawson? I didn't correct it. Why not? He shrugged. Didn't feel like it. Clara sat down on the edge of the visitor chair but didn't get too comfortable. I don't mean to pry, she said. I was just curious. You're not prying, he replied. But if you're going to start treating me differently now, we can skip that part. I'm not going to treat you different. He gave a short nod. Good. There was a pause. People act strange around money, he said. Even when you don't bring it up. Clara nodded but didn't say anything. I'm not hiding, he added. I just didn't want to be someone's story while I'm in here. You're not. He looked at her again. You're the only one in this place who didn't ask me for anything. That night, Clara went home and searched the name on her phone. Malcolm D. Rowan. Several articles came up. Old photos. News reports. He had owned a company that built apartment complexes and retirement homes. He was retired now, but had once been worth tens of millions. His name had shown up on donor lists for a few hospitals and charities. She didn't read everything. Just enough to understand that the quiet man in room 307 wasn't a nobody. She didn't bring it up again. Over the next few days, Clara noticed that Laramie had started watching her more closely again. Sometimes she'd walk by and stop outside Dawson's room without going in. Sometimes she'd ask other nurses to check on 307, even if he wasn't assigned to them. Then one afternoon, Clara got called into Laramie's office again. We've had another report, Laramie said. Clara sat quietly. One of the aides says you've been spending extra time in room 307 again. We've told you before that unless a patient is on your list, you need to keep your rounds short and documented. I only stop by if he calls, Clara said. I'm not going out of my way. Still, Laramie replied, you're drawing attention to yourself. I've asked you once. This is the second time. There won't be a third. Clara nodded once. Understood. Laramie didn't say anything else. She just closed the file in front of her and looked back down at her computer. That night, Clara was quieter than usual. She went into Dawson's room but didn't stay long. She told him what happened. They're building a case, she said. They want a reason to fire me. Dawson was not surprised. You want to stay here? He asked. She frowned. What do you mean? If they let you go, what would you do? I don't know. Look for work somewhere else, I guess. He looked at her directly. Would you leave this job for a better one if it meant you didn't have to play their games anymore? She didn't answer right away. What are you getting at? I'm asking a question, he said. Yes or no? Yes, she said. I would. He nodded. 2 days later, Clara got a voicemail from an unknown number. It was from someone named Barbara Cook. Hi, this is Barbara Cook. I'm with the Rowan Foundation. Mr. Malcolm Rowan has requested we reach out to you directly. He's looking for a full-time private nurse and mentioned you by name. If you're interested, please call back to schedule a meeting. Travel, housing, and salary would be covered. Clara played the message again. Then she sat there, staring at her phone. After everything that had happened, after being warned twice, nearly written up for feeding a patient, now she was being offered a job by that same patient. She didn't know what to say, so she didn't tell anyone right away. The next time she walked into room 307, Mr. Dawson, Rowan, didn't say anything at first. She handed him his water and adjusted his pillow. Then he asked, "Did you get the call?" "I did." "You think I'm crazy?" "I think I'm confused." He chuckled lightly. "You helped me without knowing who I was. You didn't look at me like I was some old man taking up space. That's rare. I was just doing what I thought was right. And that's exactly the kind of person I want working for me." Clara didn't say yes immediately. Clara waited a day before calling the number back. She wanted to think. When she did call, the woman answered right away. "This is Barbara Cook." Clara introduced herself. Barbara didn't sound surprised. "Mr. Rowan asked us to reach out to you directly. He's looking for a private nurse. Full-time. You'd be working for him, not a hospital." Clara didn't say anything right away. "He wants you to fly to Chicago for a meeting," Barbara continued. "You'll stay 2 nights, talk to his team, and hear the offer. No commitment yet." Clara asked who was paying for the trip. "Everything's covered," Barbara said. "Flight, room, meals." It sounded real, not like a scam. So Clara agreed. She didn't tell anyone why she was taking time off. Just swapped a shift and told the supervisor she needed personal days. Friday morning, she boarded the plane. When she landed, a driver picked her up. No small talk. Just her name on a sign, a black SUV, and a ride to a house, not a hotel. The house was large but plain from the outside. Inside it was quiet. A staff member showed her to a room. It had a clean bed, a bathroom, and a note on the desk, "Meeting at 9 a.m. BC." She didn't sleep comfortably that night. Her mind was troubled. The next morning, Clara dressed in basic work clothes and Barbara met her in the living room and walked her into a meeting room. 3 people were there. Barbara, a lawyer named Whitaker, and a nurse named Linda. Barbara spoke first. "Mr. Rowan wants to leave hospital care. He's tired of being in facilities." Clara nodded. "He wants one nurse. Someone he knows. He picked you." Clara looked at the others. They didn't interrupt. "You'd live on site," Barbara said. "Private space. 4 days on, 3 off. We'll rotate with another nurse when needed." Then they told her the salary. It was a lot. Way more than she was making. Plus housing, food, and travel covered. Linda spoke next. "We're not asking you to be a doctor. Just help with meds, daily care, and routines. He's stable. He just needs someone he trusts." Mr. Whitaker added, "There's a contract. You'll have to keep his information private." They slid a folder across the table. "Read it carefully. You don't have to answer today." Later that day, Clara met Mr. Rowan. He wasn't in a hospital room anymore. He was in a private care house, sitting in a chair by a window. "Glad you came," he said. She nodded. "I didn't know what to expect. I figured that." "Why me?" "You did the right thing when nobody was looking. That matters more than anything else." She didn't know what to say. "You don't have to agree," he said. "But I wanted to ask." That night, Clara sat at the desk and read the papers. The contract was clear. It explained the job, the expectations, and the pay. There were no tricks. In the morning, she met with Barbara again. "I'll take it," Clara said. Barbara nodded. "I'll get the paperwork moving." Back home, Clara gave her notice. No one said much. Some people looked surprised. Laramie pulled her into the office. "You're leaving?" she asked. "Yes. We had plans for you. I was going to recommend you for team lead. I've accepted another offer." Laramie didn't ask what it was. She just said, "All right. Submit your last timesheet by Friday." Malik asked her what really happened. "I got a new job," Clara said. "Better than here?" "Much better." "Good. You deserve it." On her last day, Clara stopped by a few patient rooms to say goodbye. When she walked to room 307, it was empty. The bed was made, no name on the board. He was gone. She stood there for a minute, then left. 2 weeks later, Clara moved into the guest house on Mr. Rowan's property. It was quiet, clean, and had everything she needed. Her work was steady. She gave him his meds, checked vitals, made sure he ate. He didn't talk much, but he was polite. She didn't have to rush or argue with coworkers. She just did her job. No drama. No write-ups. No gossip. For the first time, she felt like she was being treated with respect. And she didn't regret saying yes. Clara had been working for Mr. Rowan for about 6 months. Her schedule was stable and the work was clear. She gave his medication on time, helped him walk when needed, kept track of his meals, and updated his vitals regularly. He wasn't difficult to deal with, though he mostly kept to himself and didn't like small talk. One afternoon, Barbara came to the house without notice. Clara had only spoken to her over the phone since she started the job, so she knew this wasn't a regular check-in. "He wants to speak with you," Barbara said. "Privately." Clara followed her into the sitting room. Mr. Rowan was already there, seated in his usual chair. He looked more alert than usual. "Sit down," he said. "We need to talk." Clara sat across from him. She didn't say anything and waited for him to start. "I've been honest with you about most things," he said. "But not everything." Clara stayed quiet. "That hospital room, I asked to be placed there on purpose. I didn't want private care or VIP treatment. I wanted to see how nurses treated people when they thought no one important was watching." Clara nodded once, still unsure where he was going. "I'd never met the patient in the bed next to mine before that week. He wasn't my relative. I asked for him to be placed there as part of the arrangement. I needed to see who'd actually care." Clara was surprised. She hadn't expected this. "You're the only one who treated us both with respect," he said. "And you didn't know who I was." He paused, then added, "That's why I hired you." Clara looked down. She didn't want attention for something that, to her, was just part of being a decent person. Barbara stepped forward and handed her an envelope. "He wants to support you," Barbara said. "Not just as an employee, but to help you build something of your own." Inside was a letter explaining the offer. Mr. Rowan wanted to fully fund a healthcare clinic in Clara's name. She would decide how it operated, who it served, and what kind of care it provided. There were no hidden terms. No debt. No interest. Just support. "You don't have to say yes," he told her. "But I'd rather help someone like you start something real than give another donation to some large charity that doesn't know what it's doing." Clara didn't answer right away. She took the letter and said she needed time to think. A week later, Clara traveled to visit her parents. Over dinner, she finally told them everything: how she met Mr. Rowan, what had happened at the hospital, and the offer he made. Her parents were surprised, but they supported her. Her father said she'd always done the right thing, and now someone had noticed. When she got back, she met with Barbara again and agreed to take the offer. The planning started quickly. Barbara brought in legal advisors and healthcare consultants to guide the process. Clara said clearly that she didn't want a private clinic for wealthy patients. She wanted to help people who couldn't afford regular care. That was her condition. They found an old clinic space in a quiet neighborhood that had lost its only healthcare facility years earlier. The building needed repairs, but it was solid. Clara chose the name Mend Care Clinic, simple and clear. Construction and paperwork took several months. During that time, Clara continued her shifts with Mr. Rowan. He asked for updates now and then, but he didn't control anything. He just gave her room to lead. The clinic opened quietly on a Monday morning. No ribbon cutting, no press release, no camera crew. Just a clean space, a new team of nurses and assistants, and a few patients waiting at the door. Clara didn't advertise much, but word spread. People came from nearby neighborhoods, and even some from outside the city. Most of them hadn't seen a doctor in years. Some paid a small fee, others paid nothing. A year later, the clinic was serving thousands of patients. It wasn't perfect. There were challenges like supply delays and staff shortages, but it was working. The community trusted them. Clara never asked for recognition, and she never expected anything in return. But her story is proof that doing the right thing, even when no one's watching, can lead to something greater. If you found this story meaningful, consider subscribing to the channel for more true stories like this. And if you believe kindness still matters, hit the like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. We'll see you in the next one.